It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I am Alan Saunders. That is not Zachary Smith. That is the man himself from Locked On Steelers podcast and Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Chris Carter, joining the Afternoon Drive.
We back.
Great to have you back, Carter. Smitty, the dear Smitty, on vacation this week. He's at the beach. He actually straight up just deactivated Twitter, which is an awesome move.
Boss move.
Dude,
Boss move right there.
It's like don't call me. Like I'm out. I'm on vacay. Don't bug. Smitty is like he's got his sandcastle building skills on. He's doing the thing. So very happy for him. Carter, today I want to talk about the Steelers offensive line because I think it's the most interesting storyline of this offseason that we probably learned the least about over the last 3-4 weeks when we actually got to see the team, right? I mean, you get to see DK Metcalf, you get to see Aaron Rodgers, and like those guys are kind of doing their job. Aaron Rodgers maybe less than everybody else. Obviously, a lot of people want to know about Derek Harmon and things like that, and we may get to some. I got a question about him too. We may get to, but the thing about this season that to me is like so crucial is that the Steelers invested so much in the offensive line over the last 2 drafts, 4 top picks, and while I think we have a good idea about how good those guys are, whether or not this process is going to be seen in hindsight as a grand success, a total failure, or almost anywhere in between still feels very much to be determined to me. Are you on the same wavelength there?
1,000%. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it again. I'm going to keep saying it until we see it. This year is not Aaron Rodgers is going to be a footnote to the Steelers' path to the core that they are trying to build right now, to the thing that they're trying to do. They are trying to reopen a Super Bowl window, which I don't think it's open right now. But I do think they could be on the cusp of opening one if they get the young piece of their core. And it's not just the offensive line either, right? I've been saying this whole 2023 draft class, Omar Khan's first draft class, is on notice. Broderick Jones got to deliver this year. Joey Porter Jr.'s got to deliver this year. Keanu Benton's got to deliver this year. Those 3 especially. But imagine if you got those 3 guys to deliver. And by the way, Nick Herbie continues to be a good backup edge rusher. Oh, and by the way, Darnell Washington becomes an even bigger threat in the offense. And by the way, Corey Trice looks like he could pair with Joey Porter Jr. Then you're talking about, 4 or 5 different position groups that have all continued to upgrade over the past few years with players that you could keep long-term and be part of something really good. And then all of a sudden, it's not sure. Let's say they do exactly what they did the last 2 years, 10-7, losing the first round of the playoffs, but their offensive line's a lot better. Their run game's actually there, not there because they just run a whole lot. And it's like Arthur Smith. They turn the key and they hope it turns on. And when it does turn on, it's reliable. No, they turn the key. That thing's going from 0 to 60 and they're working. If that's there, if the D-line's stuffing the run more often, if the pass rush is still there, if the coverage on the outside is better and Joey Porter Jr. brings down those penalties, then you have a lot of things lining up for you for the long term. And that, to me, if they accomplish those things, that's what makes this season a success. If Aaron Rodgers comes in, he's going to be the story. He's going to be the story every day, and everyone's going to talk about him and focus on him. But let them focus on him. The key for the Steelers is these young players, and specifically, if the offensive line, I think they're the biggest key to all of this. Like you said, 4 picks in the last 2 drafts before this one with Broderick Jones, who they traded up to get. That's 5 picks when you consider what they used to get him. Then you got Troy Fautanu, Zach Frazier, and Mason McCormick in that mix. When you add all those up, if those guys become the next Pouncey, DeCastro, Foster, Gilbert, Villanueva, if they become the next that crew, it puts this franchise in a very different position than it has been for the past few years.
Yeah, and so much of what we talked about this offseason, like I don't understand, like people are excited about Aaron Rodgers. People are all abuzz about talking about getting Jalen Ramsey or who's going to be the wide receiver too. And it's like, the continued development of the young players is the most important thing for this team, considering where it is in its building process. Like they're not there yet. That like pushing all your chips in on 2025 really matters. We have to find out if that 2023 draft class is or one of the best of all time. Because like it could be either. Still, it could be either. But specifically with the offensive line, I mean, you've got Troy Fautanu coming back from injury. You've got Mason McCormick with like a real sort of, I mean, he was really thrown into it last year.
He was.
A real chance to start the year with his feet under him this time around. And of course, Broderick Jones making the move to left tackle. It's not just that they're young players, it's that they're young players with additional question marks on top of their youth, right? That I mean, if everybody was in Zach Frazier's situation where like they came in, they played as a rookie, they followed the normal progression, you're like, all right, they're probably going to be a little bit better this year. It would be one thing. But to me, there's a lot of unanswered questions here moving forward about who these guys are.
I think there is. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions, and also who these guys can be as they grow chemistry, right? Especially the offensive line. What's so important to an offensive line is being able, when you're practicing, when you're going, hey, right foot lead, we all need to step with the right foot at the exact same right time. The left foot that follows that at the exact same right time. So much time goes into making sure you're that much in sync, that your timing is that on point. That's why it was so important for the Steelers and Ben Roethlisberger's later half of his career to keep that same offensive line that they did, was because it was like, hey, every year, you know what? When these teams throw all these intricate blitzes at us, we know each other so well we can handle it. It's what kept Ben Roethlisberger alive for so long in his career. And I thought it also helped Le'Veon Bell have the career that he did when he was running behind that Steelers offensive line. And so it took time to build that chemistry. I always bring up, it wasn't like those guys hit it off right away. I think it was 2013 in David DeCastro's second year, first drive of the season. He tries to cut block in a red zone situation, accidentally takes out Pouncey's knee, and Marquise Pouncey's out for the entire year. But in 2014, when Pouncey returned, and Gilbert and DeCastro and him and Foster and Beecham were they had chemistry. They had built it, and that's what you want to see this year, is the building blocks, not, of course, Mason McCormick taking out Zach Frazier or anything like that. But what you do want to see is this group finding its cadence, finding its, okay, this is how we perform well. This is how we take on these types of pass rushes. This is how we establish the run against an odd man front, an even man front, how we're getting those things. If you're doing those things this year, you're setting yourself up to say, okay, now we see the vision for how everything fits around this group. And then all of a sudden, you're not having to redraft offensive linemen and defensive linemen and things like that. You can say, okay, the trenches are solid. We'll buttress this a little bit here and there, but now we can be aggressive. Go get that quarterback next year. Maybe find that receiver in the draft that you really want in very soon, and then get out to other positions that maybe you're like, okay, we need to get another premier edge rusher because T.J. Watt's on the last few years of his career. All those things can begin to be explored when you solidify the offensive line again.
Is there anything, you were with me, of course, almost every day over 3 weeks of OTAs and minicamp. Is there anything that you saw on the practice field that you feel like gives you some insight about which way this is going to go? Or is it just it's shorts and there's no contact and you just can't learn anything about the offensive line?
You can make notes, but those notes will have to be proven later. Like to put it this way, so to flatly answer your question, no, there's nothing you can deem right now that's going to say, oh yeah, this team is definitely going to be this. But there are things that I can say, and I can say, all right, let's see if that carries over into camp. Like, for example, I thought Broderick Jones looked a lot more fluid with his footwork. I thought when I just stared and watched him, he looked less clumsy coming into his drop. He looked like he was feeling it better, and he looked like he was able to counter what people were doing a little bit better. But that could all mean nothing, right, if he shows up to camp. But if he does show up to camp and he does improve, then it's like, hey, all that went forward. Like, for example, last year, before the preseason game against the Bills, they had that practice, against the Bills at Acrisure Stadium. During that practice, he whooped Greg Rousseau in the practice. I mean, we were standing right next to him. We were like, oh my goodness, like this. Okay, Broderick Jones, like that. I was thinking, like, all right, if he does that in the preseason game, we may have something here. But then Gregory Rousseau whooped him in the preseason game. So it was like, all right, well, I'll hold on to those notes from the practice, but they did not carry over. And that's kind of how these practices work, right? We can say, oh, I saw this day, but that's why it's journalism. We're journaling every day to say, hey, You know, he had a good day this day, a bad day this day, a good day this day, bad day this day. But then when players start to stack good day after good day after good day after good day, that's what builds greatness. That's what builds good players. And so what you're hoping is Broderick Jones, I thought he looked good for what little things he could do in OTAs and minicamp. Can he compound upon that into training camp? Because if he does, then we're saying, okay, well, he checked this box, he checked this box, he checked this box. So let's see how it plays off in an actual NFL game. That's what needs to be seen. But again, that's several steps along the way.
We got a bunch of questions I want to get to today. That was kind of the only thing that I feel like I wanted to throw out there in terms of my agenda for this show. Pretty slow news day here as we're in the doldrums of the offseason. But we did get a question about the offensive line from the Fax Mob, regular, longtime member of the audience here. Fax Mob says, quick question, Alan, what is the plan if Broderick Jones or Troy Fautanu get hurt or, Lord forbid, both miss games? I understand Omar can't satisfy every issue overnight, but it seems like a pretty consistent trend that he is very reactive with personnel acquisition decisions instead of proactive. Is this simply new GM behavior, normal business as usual, or a bigger red flag of Khan's methods to come? Chris, I want your take on the Steelers' maybe tackle depth specifically, or just the offensive line in general, and what you think Omar Khan's cooking here.
I think that if those injuries happen, yeah, it is a problem. The offensive line depth is lacking. I think that, you know, a guy like Dylan Cook, a guy like Spencer Anderson, they could fill in here and there. But if you're asking them to step up for the season, then all of a sudden it's like, man, that development that you were looking for to happen ain't happening. And all of a sudden, then you're like, oh man, this could be really rough on the whole group as far as trying to see things move forward. But here's the thing that I have about is this an Omar Khan problem? Every roster has weak spots somewhere. There's always some depth chart point where you're like, man, if that guy goes down, there could be issues. Now, the best rosters have it in the weakest, in the parts that don't matter as much. Like, you know what? If both our corners go down and we're down to this guy, then you know what? Doggone it, we're just gonna have to win because we have Joe Burrow or no Joe Cook. Well, Joe Burrow doesn't have good cornerbacks, but you know what I'm saying. If there's a team that has so many other good things going for it, they can mask up those type of injuries. I don't think the Steelers are that team just yet. But no, I don't think there's offensive line depth, and I think that could be an issue. But I think it's one of those things where it's like, look, Omar Khan is reshaping this team so much every year. I mean, you think about just how different this already is from what he inherited. Kenny Pickett is gone. Mason Rudolph's back. Mitch Trubisky's gone. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields have come and gone. The offensive line has been completely revamped. Najee Harris is gone. George Pickens is gone. There's Deontay Johnson is gone. So much has flipped over with this offense, and they've addressed so many other things that they have. Okay, this thing's better. Linebacker is not the issue that it used to be. No, it's not elite right now, but you're not looking at linebacker being like, oh gosh, who are these guys? And are they going to have to sign old man Miles Jack from learning how to fly to come back and save this team? They're not doing that this year because they have three guys that I think all are starter capable dudes in Roberts, Queen, and Wilson, Queen, and Holcomb. And then you still have Malik Harrison as a fourth option there. Like, they have solidified so many things. So yeah, you know what? There's going to be some spots that are weak spots. And I think that's where Omar Khan is, because it's just naturally where some things are going to lie. Is it weak in the offensive line? Yep. And if they lose the wrong guy, it could be a bad situation.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that you can't be deep everywhere. I don't think offensive line depth is usually expensive. I wonder if the Steelers just feel a lot more strongly about Calvin Anderson than maybe the rest of us do. Thought he had a pretty good game against Baltimore when he was called on last year. But he only took, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 snaps.
Right.
Last year they came into the season, McCormick was a backup. Nate Herbig was a backup. They had Troy Fautanu was a backup. They end up losing 3 guys to the season to injuries. Now that's high. They were not too far removed from going an entire year where all 5 linemen played every snap. But if you got 3 season-ending injuries on this offensive line, that's right. A disaster. Whereas last year, it was not. last year they were able to absorb that level of injury, and they were kind of fine with it. I don't think they have the depth that they've had, and I do feel like there's an awful lot of eggs in the basket, especially of Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu, especially considering neither of them have ever even done the jobs they're being asked to do.
Right.
Forget injury. What if, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but what if they go out there and Troy Fautanu just isn't very good? Or Broderick Jones just can't play left tackle? Or, you know, like, I don't think those things are likely, going back to some of the other discussions, but like, they're possible. And I'm not sure the backup plan is very good, but I don't think this is necessarily some sort of symptom of Omar's. I don't necessarily have an understanding of why this is the way it is. I actually put out, Smitty and I were talking about this the other day.
Okay.
I thought maybe they avoided and semi-intentionally bringing in someone who would, push is the wrong word, but be a temptation to play if things get gnarly for either of those two tackles.
Make it so that neither of them have to look over their shoulder. Is that
right?
Is that
right? Yeah.
There's
just no coaching temptation to ever get away from them.
Right.
It doesn't matter how badly things go. As we talked about earlier, the big picture is this process has to work, or
Right.
they're taking a huge step back. So even if it's a small step back, even if there's some setbacks over the course of this season, letting them go for the whole season, almost no matter what, unless they get hurt, is better than providing some, mediocre stopgap opportunity that might be better for 1 week, but screws the pooch long term.
I hear you on that, and that could be a theory the Steelers are going with. They're saying, "Hey, we believe in you guys, and so we're going to operate this way." That's certainly something there. But again, like every roster comes with risks, right? Like like you go back and you think back to when the Steelers traded away, what was it, Josh Dobbs, and then they just happened to just have the worst luck of quarterbacks, in the history of this franchise. Just Ben Roethlisberger goes down, Mason Rudolph gets destroyed, and all of a sudden you're stuck with Devlin Hodges, an undrafted rookie D1 AA, whatever he was, Samford quarterback, who's a professional duck caller. So like things like that, if they happen, it's rough. I mean, go back to where the Chief was. Andy Reid unprepared because both of his offensive tackles went down the week before the Super Bowl. I mean, sure, you could say that, but it's like, who is prepared for stuff like that, right? Injury luck is very much part of it. Look at the Pacers. The NBA fun were the Pacers so unprepared for Tyrese Halliburton to just tear his Achilles.
Huh?
Yeah, and I know that's your boy, but at the same time, injuries are part of sports. Someone brought up a very good point about why they're not so hot on the Eagles repeating this year. One, the NFC East curse is real. They will not win that division again this year. No one's repeated as NFC champions, I think, since 2003. That is, I believe in that curse like I believe in the Madden curse. But on a side note, the Eagles were one of the healthiest teams all throughout last year. A lot of their keyest players didn't lose them. And you look across the league, everybody loses key players at some point in time. The Steelers that's been the Steelers' MO. The Steelers, when everyone says, "Oh, the Killer Bees, they never lived up to it in the playoffs." The Killer Bees with Ryan Shazier are 2-0 in the history of the Steelers playoffs. When all four of them, when Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, Ryan Shazier all started and played an entire game in the playoffs, that would only happen twice, and they won both of them. And so injuries played a big part in that, just like they play a big part in everything. And I think that's something that happens to everybody. And are you unprepared if you didn't figure out if you couldn't guess right that the injuries happen at the wrong part of your team? 76 Steelers, Franco and Rocky go down, and it's just like, well, that's a huge part of your offense, and they lose. Were they bad because of that? No, it just happens. And so I think it's in a situation where they have guys who I think they think are good pinch hitters on the offensive line, and that's fine. But there's no way to prepare yourself for devastating injury hits. That's just the luck of the draw sometimes, or the unluck of the draw.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. I do think they could have done better than the backups they have right now.
Sure.
And I do think there's some strategy to I think it's also a personality thing. Like, I think if you're talking about someone to come in, and this applies to the conversations about rumors about guys like Jair Alexander and Jalen Ramsey, if guys that are good enough to start don't want to come in and aren't going to be happy just sitting behind a first round draft pick. You kind of either have to give a guy an opportunity to win a job, or you're only going to attract a certain caliber of player.
Yeah. Not feeling on that. That's the tricky part about balancing rosters, right? Is whoever you bring in, there's always a factor of who are you scaring, who is it, who feels like they're looking over their shoulder, who's doing this. There's all these calculations, but right now the bottom line is the Steelers are trying to find a new nucleus that's going to carry them into this is the second half of the 2020s that you're now into, right? So the first half was very much about they try to rebuild with certain young players on offense. They try to go with the playmakers first and Pickett and Harris and Pickens, and that didn't work. And that didn't work out. They kept Pat Freiermuth, and that worked. And other pieces that they've added have stuck. Now it's going to be about, can they get this foundation to work? That whatever they do, it has to be the plan of this. Whoever we're bringing in, we want to be contributing towards this long-term plan that's going to set it up by 2027. I'd say the Steelers, they're going to want to have a quarterback who's established, whether that's the rookie they drafted or the veteran that they went out and signed or whatever it is. Oh, geez, don't get me started. But they'll have the quarterback established. The offensive line's in a great place. They'll have playmakers on offense. The defense, if T.J. Watt and Cam Hayward are gone by then, if Cam Hayward's still playing in 2027, my God. But on top of that, Joey Porter Jr. is in his prime by then. Keanu Benton, Derek Harmon have come along right now. If you have that new core ready to go, then you're in the conversation. Maybe the Steelers are one of the better rosters in the NFL because they're balanced across the board. But that is the objective of right now, finding those pieces that are the center of what you're building for, so that in 2 years' time, you're hitting the ground running into the season, and you're the team everyone's talking about. Like, oh, the Steelers, look out for them. They're the Super Bowl favorites, kind of like how they do with the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Ravens right now.
Yeah. No, I think that really, really well states it. Let's go to one from Darth Frazier here. He's got two about the secondary. The first one, though, I really want to get to. We're going to say the second one. We'll see how long we go on this. The Steelers, this is not his question. This is my preamble. The Steelers, during OTAs and minicamp, were actively selling the idea of Calvin Austin being a wide receiver, too. Zach Azzani actually said Calvin Austin's a wide receiver, too. And I don't think anybody buys that, right? Certainly Calvin Austin can be a good part of a good receiving room, but there's good reason the Steelers are going to talk to every wide receiver available between now and the start of the season. They know they need another guy there. But another thing, and they weren't actively selling this, but I don't think I saw anybody besides Beanie Bishop take a first-team slot cornerback rep over 3 weeks. They're kind of selling, hey, Beanie's the guy in the slot. Are you buying that they are going to let Beanie Bishop go win this slot corner job without even seemingly a whole heck of a lot of competition for him, other than 7th rounder Dante Kent, and go into the season with that as his job?
I think they are going to be happy to see Beanie Bishop come into camp, work his butt off, put the pads on, and see where he's grown. And I think that if they feel like, oh man, that's a liability, he still has some of those big questions, then they'll go out and get a guy. They'll make a trade, because here's the thing about slot corners. They're not the most expensive, unless you're getting a prime slot corner. They're not the most expensive thing on the market. So that's one of those things that a team that's like, hey, you know what, we ain't trying to pay this guy over here. Let's we'll trade him to you for a 6th, right? And so then you give up a 6th round pick and you get a slot corner who comes in, and if Beanie Bishop's not ready, they just take over the handles right there. That's where that's something. I think that's the situation you're in. So they're gonna give Beanie Bishop a chance this year, because look, Beanie Bishop wasn't great last year, but he was good for the things that he did for an undrafted free agent rookie. He did, I thought, an amicable job. Now it's going to be about, can he build upon it? Because just because you're an undrafted free agent rookie doesn't mean that, all your mistakes are excused. You need to be able to step up. So if I'm the Steelers, I'm looking at him very close. If I'm Beanie Bishop, I am making it a point to be able to line up, play well, and prove you don't need to go get somebody else. I am your guy. But if I'm the Steelers, I'm keeping a close eye out for, hey, who's on the chopping block with other teams? What's a guy that we could bring in that'll be a solid veteran who just won't get exposed and can just communicate at a solid level? That's along the lines that I'd be looking at if I'm the Steelers.
Yeah, not only talking about the idea of trading for somebody, Mike Hilton's out there.
Yeah. He's a free agent sitting there right now.
Kendall Fuller's still out there. Art Millette's out there. I think there's the opportunity. Asante Samuel. I don't know if he's healthy, but he's out there. There's certainly like a lot of guys. I agree that I think Beanie is going to get a real opportunity to win this job. Is that the best slot corner the Steelers could have gotten to go into the season with? No. But like you're talking about with the offensive line, if Beanie does grow and if he does show that he can handle the role, that's one more box check towards that 2027 blueprint you're talking about. That's one more piece in place that you're giving him the opportunity to say, yes, I can do it. Yes, I got this job. He was good enough last year. I think that he deserves a chance to show he can do it.
I agree.
Need to have some kind of plan B on their mind if he can't, but I do think he deserves that chance. would much rather see Beanie Bishop give it a shot than bring Mike Hilton back. Like right now. Now, if you give him the shot and it doesn't work, fine. But like to just go to like an older veteran and say, hey, we know your best days are behind you, but go out there and do it just because we don't trust this guy. I don't love that thought process.
So I want to do what we're supposed to do as journalists and insiders, right? Guys who are around the building, who talk to people in the building, who give you a sense. When that period starts to hit where you start to where there's not a whole lot of real news in the NFL and there's just like such and such team called about such and such player and and those things, those are not usually I'd say 85 to 90% of the time. Those calls are not about anything imminent. Those are GMs doing their job around the league saying, hey, what would it cost if we wanted to get this guy? Not saying we're doing it right now, but there may come a day. And where do you guys stand with him? And just have those conversations. And there's this board that you set up in a room somewhere, and that you're like, and I just see Omar Khan being like, hey, 32 or 31 other teams. These are the players that we're looking at for each of these teams. And in these situations, like not just wide receiver 2, not just like a Jalen Ramsey trade, but like, hey, what if Beanie Bishop don't work out in camp? Who are the guys that we're looking for that teams that we're interested in and teams might not be interested in keeping and that we could get for that's the kind of scouting that they do across the board with the front office work to say, hey, let's be prepared. So when teams are making those phone calls, that's what's actually happening there. They're building, we talk about draft boards. Teams have pro boards for who they're looking at, what could be available and being ready for if something happens. Like who could be ready for Joe Hayden getting cut from the Browns when the Steelers scooped him up when they did back then. That's what I think the Steelers do then. And so to give you that insight, that's what I think that they're waiting for a guy like Beanie Bishop. And similarly, I think that's what they're waiting for Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson. Bringing back to the preamble that you gave to your question, Calvin Austin, I think that they do think, hey, he might not be a pure wide receiver 2 by himself. Like, watch out, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, here we come. But he might be a really, really good wide receiver 3 that you're saying, hey, you know what? With him and Roman Wilson and DK Metcalf, you got to worry about speed. And with Aaron Rodgers and Pat Freiermuth and this offensive line working and Darnell Washington, Jalen Warren, there's a whole lot to say this could work if the right things click. So that's where I think the Steelers are with Beanie Bishop and a few others. They're in, hey, we've scouted alternative paths if we need to get there, but we'll see if we even need to pull that trigger because we want to see these guys in camp when the pads do go on.
Chris, the last thing I want to bring up here, we had a show on Friday, and we got a question from a member of the audience about basically me being a little harsh on some thoughts about people's ideas on here from time to time. I kind of did go off a little bit a couple weeks ago. Okay. And I sort of said, hey, look, this is who I am. I don't give it any other way than just blunt and brutal honesty. And a lot of people in the comments came and said, hey, I first saw you on Locked on Steelers, and I love that you brought that to the table, and that's how I found this podcast. So you were a big part of the conversation on Friday, and in the comments, OVO Mike 06 said, a Saunders versus Carter beef that's just a total work would be prime off-season entertainment. Now, I have not prepped you with this question. Chris Carter, what are we beefing about?
I have no idea this was coming. Like, I was like, what is happening? Where are we going with this conversation? What are we beefing about? I don't know, man. Like if we were beefing, like I would come back with like I would use like Kendrick Lamar beats and like that from Future, like the horns from that, and just be like coming up with verses. I'd be using. I'm not very much of a rapper myself. I'd be using AI entirely. I'd be like, okay, give me some bars about Alan Saunders right now. And like that would be. So what will we be beefing right now? I don't know. I think we might have some food beefs. What's the best pizza in Pittsburgh right now?
Rockaway, White Oak.
Okay, beef right there. Minios all day, every day.
So
I stand on it. I stand on Squirrel Hill, on Paradise, on Taylor Gang.
It's not even the best pizza on its own street.
Oh, wait, you gonna say yellows?
Oh, yeah.
Get the heck out of here. Now we're beefing.
But see, that's not a work. I will legitimately beef about anybody with pizza. You don't know.
I know that you like pizza. That's why I went there. I was like, what's he passionate about? Pizza. We can do that one.
We could also beef about my my disdain for comic book character movies. Because I can get you where you live too.
Oh,
I can.
This man had a the nerve to call me a nerd in like a bad way. I'm like, do you know nerds are in right now? Like, we're cool. Like, get with the times, bro.
No, it's not it.
It's not it.
Good stuff, Chris. Thank you for joining us here on the Steelers Afternoon Drive. Always a pleasure having you. Why don't you tell the people, they know, but tell the people where they can find you and check out your stuff.
Absolutely. My name is Christopher Carter. You can find me at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com, where I do my writing on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I also host the North Shore Drive podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for them on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. I also host the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, also on your favorite podcast apps on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, also the social medias, same handle everywhere at Carter Critiques, and you can catch my weekly crazy shows. We do Tuesday episodes often with Alan Saunders on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Alan, thanks for having me, man. It's always fun to be here.
We actually already recorded tomorrow's
Locked
On Steelers, so yeah, that's going to be good. You can find me @Saunders_PGH on that's Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now sites account, SteelersNow.com. Go there and read the word so I can get paid. There is a 90 thoughts article from OTAs and minicamp that is over 8,000 words of thoughts.
Insane.
You have to be an SN Plus subscriber to access that one. But if you're not, it's well worth it. Not just for that, you get the ad-free reading over at SteelersNow.com. You'll also get access to our members-only live streams with me and DB and Smitty, which are a lot of fun as well. We'll have another one of those just before the start of training camp. It's also free for anyone to like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube channel as we continue to try to grow our audience and get this podcast in front of more people. We have 15,948 subscribers. Good old Bud Dupree. Chris, you got a favorite Steelers 48?
Bud Dupree's the only 40 I can think of right now. Well, I guess DJ Thomas Jones right now, right? So that's my guy. So I love me some DJ Thomas Jones. But Bud Dupree's the man. Like, I honestly miss talking to Bud Dupree. He was a lot of fun to have in the Steelers locker room.
Not a great number. Ade Ogundeji wore 48 last year. I know this because I was looking through Steelers Jets game pictures for something for something DB was working on today, and I was like, "Who's 40?" Oh yeah, I forgot about Ade. There you go. So
my gosh,
Ade Ogundeji. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Me back with another Steelers Morning Rush tomorrow here on the YouTube channel and on the podcast feeds. Thank you all for listening. Till next time. Enjoy.